Hello everyone, I'm Sidival, and today we're gonna continue reading World and Economica. So it's second part of second episode. Yeah. Well, pretty much we started on previous stream, and pretty much main thing what we seen it I guess whereabouts of people who lived previously in same sector as where was church and where Haru lived for a while. Well, mostly we see Lisa, Siraut, and Chris. Well, yeah, it's only characters what at least have sprites. I believe it should be more characters what were here because it was um, party because of Chris actually was able to roll into college, which, as we can remember, I really wanted to do in first episode. So besides that, we are learn what Chris and Haru became kinda close, and Chris actually has crush on Haru, and Haru actually don't know about it, but he didn't answer to her feelings so far. So it's kinda interesting because of that. Who gonna be an end game? Because while hmm, obviously Kagana was a first girl, and I kind of believe she probably gonna get back here in first episode. But it's still interesting because there is a possibility what Haru gonna actually have feeling for someone else, while Kagana is not here while she disappearing. Hmm. And Chris obvious candidate. Besides her, there is also girl on the cover of this episode, which we didn't meet yet, and which is interesting to meet since she seems as someone rich. Hmm. Oh yeah, besides that, we learn what Haru also go back to school and also has work, what he doing right now. So pretty sure he don't use market. I mean, which makes sense as it give him enough physiological trauma, so he actually well can really use one of the his leg, um, can't show emotions on his face, and they don't have panic attacks or something like this. Mm. So anyway, we finish with pre-stream on Haru going from the party, and let's see what he gonna do next. Hmm. I believe he mentioned that she should go back to the work. So are we gonna see his new work? I guess let's continue reading. Mhm. I gave a slight sigh after I left the dim apartment. Af- Sorry, I gave a slight sigh after I left the dim apartment complex from which all the cheerful voices came. People didn't change deep down. It was a different story when they were rotten into the core. I took off walking, dragging my foot as I hobbled along with my crutch. I couldn't even go at a steady pace, much less take a daring leap. Paralysis and habit were more common than a cold. It was incredibly difficult to get rid of them. Okay, so we left a little bit too early. I guess this point was a little bit better to stop. Eh, but it still was only a few phrases, so whatever. Lunar Service, Facility of Humanities, Law Department, Legal Studies, Second Division. Hmm. This was the name of the university and department I was fortunate enough to sneak my way into a year ago. But because the second division is all year classrooms, I'd never been to the actual campus. Interesting. It was near the Lunar City University in Newton City, which churned out the best minds of humanities. But I couldn't imagine going. It was probably filled with kids from wealthy families coming from Europe making a ruckus. With increasing population and the influx of school-age individuals coming to lunar surface had caused new educational institutions to pop up. If it didn't, then there would be no way for someone like me, who hadn't even completed elementary school, to sneak in. Of course, I studied a lot, but having two former Lunar City University students tutor me also helped. Hmm, interesting. Lisa had studied theological history at Lunar City University. Asiraut had a doctorate in engineering. Hmm, actually forget about this. What he was finished university, I guess. It probably would have cost a fortune if I had hired a tutor through a professional agency. Agency. Let me check. How should be reading. I probably gonna forget it again, but still. Agency. Okay. I wasn't sure which field to go into, but I ended up choosing law. Law. Interesting. Why? Hmm. Succeed on the lunar surface, you either need an MBA, which was short for Master of Business Administration, or you had to be really good at mathematics. The point was to study abstract things that could be performed using only pen and paper. It was because the more you touched something in the real world, the more friction slowed it down. The guy making semiconductors in the factory was like a guy going down a road on foot. The guy directing that factory was the one going down in a car. The guy making the blueprints for the semiconductors being produced in the factory was the guy going in a jet. Hmm. And the guy managing the group of experts drafting the blueprints was the guy riding the orbital elevator. Interesting. Hmm. Following that logic, a lawyer was somewhere in the upper middle level of the lunar surface. You had to hire hours, strike it big, but in the end, you still need pen and paper to make a decent amount. Especially on the lunar surface, where companies regularly sparked battles over intellectual property rights. That is why the legal studies department was the last means of escape for those who failed in math, or for selfish greenhorns more interested in money than in studying rigid business laws. This Cyril probably both thought that as well. My dream, for, uh, my dream 4 years ago was to save up more money than anyone ever had and use that money to stand on untrodden land. Hmm. So, is he give up on his dream? I mean, it has sense. Now he has drama, trauma about this stuff. But even if he give up, I don't believe he entirely give up. Probably gonna return to his dream later on. Probably. Anyway. That dream had collapsed on me. But being a lawyer wasn't a bad second choice. The two of them probably thought this was how I worked things out. Adorning a business suit with golden cuffs, my short hair combed back, debating the opposition's arguments in a courtroom like I was trying to kill them with words to make a living. The me from 4 years ago might have thought that this wouldn't be too bad. But it makes sense why they think it's how he. Well, we thought about this how Har worked things out because I guess he never told about his dream anywhere beside anyone besides Hagana. In reality, it was much difficult. Sorry, I can't read. In reality, it was much different. Serial still thought that that was my reason, but I had made it clear to Lisa. This was around the night they celebrated my acceptance into college at the second 22nd block church. It wasn't even comparable to Chris today, but it was still lovely. When I told her why I entered into legal studies, Lisa embraced me without a word. So what's his reason? After doing that for a while, she let go, and then laughed it with a hint of sadness in her voice. You're really grown up. If that was how she felt about me, admitting that I wanted to help people in trouble, and if just a little, then Lisa was still Lisa after all. Being treated like a child was embarrassing, but it still felt pleasant. But it was because of how cold the lunar surface was. It was kinda also why I chose to pick up love. I no longer earned doubt about wanting to stand on a untrodden land. And if I were to go there, no man has gone before, so what? If there was someone I wanted to keep dear to me, then I would be prepared to turn my back on that unexplored land. And this time, I would grasp that hand firmly and not lose sight of what mattered. Interesting, so it's actually not a bad reason to give up on his dream, even if it's a little sad, but still. But right now, I had no idea of where the person I wanted to hold dear was. I was still in the dark as to where Hagana had ended up. I didn't even know if she had gone to Earth or stayed here. This was even worse than me at giving up her search, but recently she hadn't been speaking about her progress. I, on the other hand, felt my hand cramped every time I passed by a girl with black hair. Okay. As I stared up at the sky as I walked, I reached a building that could easily rival the gloomy 22nd block apartments in terms of dirtiness. I mean, it's not look so bad. On our surface, 4th Outer District's 7 blocks agency was posted on the entrance. By the way, when is oh, okay, I skipped. Well, not really skip. I just wanted to ask. I mean, I don't remember if it was said or not, but where is 22nd block is in which sector it is or district? Yeah, because I believe first episode was mostly about 6th district. so if its district was completely lost. I guess probably. Anyway. Making our way past the first floor, filled with people feeling complaints and paperwork, someone called out to me abruptly when I entered the room in the far back of the third floor. "Oh, you're already back?" I didn't think there would be anyone here, but a plain long-haired girl was around to greet me. Okay, a new character. I already submitted your leave slip. With a face like mine, it's hard to stay at a party. I said everything with a straight face. I mean, slowly he can change face. It perplexed most people when I first met them, and this woman in front of me was one of the most perplexed by it. Her name was Rena. She was both my working scholarship direct supervisor and supervisor of said scholarship. Whenever or not I received my meager salary depended entirely on Rena's assignment of my work, as I studied while living in the dorms. She was the kind who wore skirts made of cheap materials that reached down to her shoes, usually had a shawl or cardigan, and had her long black hair tied up. Everyone from Europe would say that this was the typical image of a government employee. I was inclined to agree. Here, there were people who could earn $1 million moons in the span of a single night. Depending on how much efforts you put in, you got better odds of becoming wealthy on the lunar surface than on Earth. That was one of the biggest selling points for now. People who came here to work in a government position, where you pay didn't increase no matter how hard you worked. Were either stupid individuals incapable of working for private businesses or foolish waiters with a burning sense of duty. You could say Rena was one of them. It was never one of us, never a fool nor an idiot, but something lower than human. I was never one of us. Okay. I can't tell when you're telling a joke. Rena tilted her head to the side and wore a troubled smile that fitted her and more than Chris fitted hers. She must have been older than me, and maybe around about the same age as Lisa, I guessed. But Rena was very childish. That might have made her seem cute if she were shorter, but since she was rather tall, it just made her look as all the more stupid. So Haru still kinda hard on people. I was half joking, half honest. Ever since you came here, you'll always put me in a blind like this. More importantly, why is nobody here? I had asked that without even reaching to her complaint. I'm reacting to her complaint. Why can't read today? Sorry. Rena looked around the room courteously and gave a troubled-looking smile. Because it's lunchtime. Makes sense. It's still 10 minutes early, though. Everyone gets hungry. I was annoyed with that, she said, but it was pointless to get angry at her. Most of exceptional talent were regularly snatched up for better positions. As government officers were at the absolute bottom, and their academic backgrounds were fantastic, but they ended up being a nest of worthless individuals. This resulted in a gathering of either diligent people or clumsy ones, like Rena, who was both. Which is the most overdue? Let's start from them. Not to worry, I already went over them all. Rena smiled feebly, but I knew that she had a bunch of work thrown at her field under miscellaneous. The division Rena and I, her subordinate, belonged to was simply a division charge of processing mis. How is word really? Um, Let me check. Bum bum. Miscellaneous. Okay. A division charge of processing miscellaneous tasks. It was also where the stats division of the main office in Newton City along with our departments would send their data to be processed for them before submitting it to the bureaucrats. If you'd never manually entered the statistical data of seemingly meaningless field complaints into a terminal, then you could never understand this agony. Doing work like that made you honestly wonder if you really were human. Those who were selfish and arrogant enough to insist they were human weren't fit for the task, so the ones used to being patient ended up taking care of it. With a weak smile and tired face, Rena repeated this monotonous workday in and day out. Work day in and day out. Yeah. When I first came to this office, I said that as a type of slow suicide. I thought Rena was an incredibly selfless person. She wouldn't be working like a slave here if there was no purpose. The reason she was holding up in a place like this was because there was something she wanted to do. More importantly, there have been a few applications circling around again. This is the only sprout of green in Rena's otherwise withered grass like you. We're taking care of them right now. You should at least go to lunch. And I'll buy something that I can eat with my hour hand. Calm, could you have a look at them first? Rena, who normally seemed like she would be blown away by the wind at any moment, had a sparkle in her eyes. I scanned these documents that never seems to run out, and thought the loaner service had no resources. Rena was originally contracted to file and check the various applications to the government office, not the statistical data. Most of them were mundane applications, but there were some that were quite important. One of those was a subsidy application for a welfare group. The welfare group activities subsidy program was said to be a hotbed for fraud, as in fraudulent groups that would apply for and receive subsidies illegally. We sometimes heard of government employees accepting bribes, but that was unlikely. And without sending a bribe, applicants weren't expected in such great detail to begin with. Were there any that looked legitimate? Rena, who was about to stand up, answered my question with her hand still on the back of the chair. It's our job to find the ones that are. Fair enough. We must work hard for those who really do need the funds. Rena concluded that with a cheerful smile. Even if it's just us, let's try to be champions of justice. Rena flicked her long hair that she probably once grew out because getting it cut was too much of a bother, and left to buy lunch. The pay was meager. There was no paid overtime, and most of the people working here was irresponsible, so this job was badly considered by society. And yet Rena was working so earnestly that you could question her sanity. And thought she was probably halfway through her 20s, she might just not understand how the world worked. That near pathological slow-wittedness of hers did have some advantages. Rena was similar to Chris, but Chris was one of whose superhuman beings who could exert themselves to levels that were mortals like me just couldn't rival. Rena, on the other hand, was the kind of ditzy girl that Ellen and I could feel superior to. I could easily tell her to turn on the TV and look at the rest of the world, weeding out the fraudulent applications and making sure the groups that really needed financial financial help could get it was child's play on this merciless lunar surface. But would anything good come out of telling Rena this? Most likely not. In that case, I would rather feel pleasantly drunk on her previous words than on the beer I had been made to drink earlier. And if it is just us, let's try to be champions of justice. I couldn't become a hero, so I wanted to at least become a bigger champion of justice. That praise, it was like beer. There was a sweet, intoxicating appeal to it. It carried too a severe bitterness. Well, already? This is all? Lena blotted it out when she returned with a sandwich that was probably from a food cart in the neighborhood streets. The place used are pretty standards. I figured out easily by looking up the phone numbers and address. Using a private phone service and fabricated address, was it? That's right. I sorted the phone numbers of groups that have received funds, and I ended up with quite a few duplicates. Terrible that they couldn't even do such a rudimentary check. Rena's shoulder slapped as she said that, but it couldn't be helped. The serious lack of government workers meant that the system barely functioned properly. They just couldn't deal with each and every small denomination of financial aid scam. There are only 3 of that look legitimate. The others one on that list are suspicious and probably no good. Just to be certain, please call them and check. While taking a sandwich from Rena, I handed her some documents at the same time, most which weren't using private telephone services and fabricated addresses. Most of these fraudulent claims had given a real bank account, but phone numbers and addresses that, well, actually exist were false. And yet, if they were lucky, they might manage to pass the inspection and receive financial aid. Last time, 7 out of 7 turned out to be bogus. Rhiannon took the same way. She would have given back a test she had failed, but I shared neither her opinion nor feelings on the matter. Oh, but as she said, sorry, right as she was about to pick up her phone, Rhiannon suddenly turned around towards me. There are some left for consideration, right? I paused for a moment before I replied. Well, yeah. Thanks God. It's been a while since some have gotten through your inspection. Her innocent smile seemed particularly stupid. I took the early prepared chicken sandwich she gave me in exchange for some cheap change, and I turned back to my desk as I started biting down on it. Seemingly outbored by my bluntness, Rena grabbed the documents I had just given her and started making some calls. She had probably long forgotten about the sandwich she had about herself. She was the type to forget one thing, but starting an hour. I stopped and served her take home dried up food she had forgotten to eat with a disheartened look on her face. She would probably gnaw at it in her small room in the hatch-like lodgings the government leased out to her. Picturing this, I couldn't help but wonder what constituted happiness for our people. Yes, okay. Then you're no idea. Yes. Whatever motivation could be heard in her voice had disappeared by the 4th time this kind of conversation had repeated itself. But still, I was rather impressed that she'd gotten so good at taking a beating lately. When she had first started doing whose checks, she would get discouraged right after realizing her first application was bogus and would no longer be able to take on the next ones. I thought it was amazing she managed to live up to this point with that naivety. Or it could be that she wasn't going to get past this point. It was very likely that in an office where most employees left before noon and didn't come back until around 2 p.m., she would end up doing work that wasn't even hers. No, thank you for answers. Ren tapped her screen to end the call. The sixth one wasn't any good either, apparently. Ah, I could tell how depressed she was without even looking behind me. She was my superior. There was nobody else in this cramped, empty room. So I had no other choice but to say it. Would you like some coffee? Huh? Ren stretched her slumped over back, looked up, and turned towards me. Are you going to make some? There's no one else to do it, after all. My, how wonderful. I would love some. Ren replied that, a cheerful smile on her face. I nodded and took coffee beans, imported from Europe, and an old-fashioned hand crank grinder out of my desk drawer. This had taught me how to make coffee. There were times when I stayed after work to study her drawer, then back at the dorm, as I didn't have to pay the electricity and heating here. Those times where I could enjoy some coffee along with a change of pace were one of my few pleasures. The reason I rarely had some myself was simply because coffee beans were quite the luxury item for my meager salary. Had a big change since before he pretty much was really rich. Well, if you compare him to our people in these sectors. But obviously, since he don't do trading anymore, he not really rich anymore. When I'll finish up the calls until then I'll finish up the calls until it's done. I said with a smile as I got up from my chair. It was very quiet in the office. Sometimes the only sound was that of some sipping from their coffee. I came back with coffee for two. Then I was almost as per usual, sitting at her desk with a puzzled look on her face, staring off absent-mindedly. She was looking distractedly at an unknown TV program displayed in a corner of her screen. I had expected it. She only said that before taking a sip of her coffee. Interesting, this woman on the screen, is she gonna be important? Who knows? I mean, she has a blonde hair. Can't she be a mother of girl with in the cover of this episode or something? I mean, who knows? Like, it can be just some random character that we're gonna see just on this slide. Anyway. She only said that before taking a sip of her coffee. But it still gets me down knowing they were all no good. It's very unlikely that all these applications being bogus had any impact on Ren's livelihood whatsoever. If anything, I felt that since she wanted to be champion of justice, spotting evil deeds should make her proud, rather than unnecessarily depressed. I had once told Rena that directly. I thought she'd get mad, but instead she smiled, a bit embarrassed. I'm saddened by all the evil intention filling the lunar surface, given how beautiful it is. Ren's profile as she stared idly at the screen was dull, and really naive looking. Sipping my black coffee, with neither milk nor sugar, I glanced at the documents remaining on my desk. Okay. I personally can drink coffee without milk. Well, I can without sugar, but I also prefer with sugar. But then again, to be completely honest, I just don't really like coffee. I usually drink only if I'm kinda sleepy. Anyway. Anna asked me, I looked over in my direction. But there are still some that need consideration today, right? Please, don't get your hopes up. Huh? Why? Do I need to say it? Are but if they were able to get past your strict selection, then it should be fine if I call them up. Strict? I'm not sure whether that's true or not, but it's more likely they just cleared the first obstacle. It looked like Rena wanted to say something else, but had eventually given up. She resumed watching her TV show, sipping her coffee. You're quite amazing, Hal. Huh? I mean, you're able to see through obvious lies with barely any effort. If I was checking them, I end up only checking things like whenever they spelled everything right, or whenever they properly signed the documents. Well, it's also important to check who speaks, you know? Yeah, look at it in usual base, Hal. When I looked up, Ren was slightly furrowing her unkempt eyebrows and had a bitter smile. I'm not very bright, so I can never tell who's a fraud. How do you do that, Hal? How, you ask? Because it's not like there's a manual on this, is there? Or do they talk about it in your lectures at the Legal Studies Department? I guess it's from his previous experience. Nope. Then how? Dell looked at me with ingenuous eyes. Most people stopped assuming every question had an answer by the time they were teenagers. Looking over her shoulder at the show she was watching, I simply said, intuition. No, I guess. I wanted to say what he good with this, but he didn't realize what Barton was treating him. So I mean, maybe he has bad intuition, good intuition, just not perfect one. And then again, Barton has a lot of experience, and I believe he has also haven't been told what Barton do things like he did before Haru. It was like not the first time for him, so yeah, he has experience. Anyway. Huh? No way. You can't know this phone number is from a private phone service by intuition. Also, how you tell is suspicious if both the number and address actually exist? That's really just luck. Rena's mouth kept opening and closing, which probably meant she was unhappy with my answer. But just as usual, she ended up not saying anything. Her own way, Rena was surely asking me that in earnest, so I could have just answered her properly. But if I did that, I would end up recalling things I didn't want to remember. Okay, so it is because of his experience. An application for financial aid was a kind of presentation explaining who wanted how much, to do that, in which place, and for what purpose. I had started tons of presentations like that in my teens. The TV show Rena was absent-mindedly watching was about just that. Everyone young and old was enthroned by their here on the moving lunar surface with an extreme wealth disparity. I still think being able to do that is amazing. That's why I think you'd be also good at this. Rena said that as she kept watching her program, she was hinting that she hadn't yet given up on the topic. On TV was a famous woman with her trademark sunglasses and her platinum blonde hair tied up in a high bun. She held on to some documents as she was loudly ranting about something. This was a stock exchange information program. A stock company prosperous for its issued shares was very similar to a financial aid application. The woman on TV was incredibly popular analyst who was known as a guardian deity on the people's wallets. So she is someone important. which is mean we probably gonna see her in future. She was yammering on about stocks, making people like Rena want to buy some of themselves. No way, I'd be terrible at it. Is that so? You really look like you'd do great, though. Leaving that aside, would you like an hour cup of coffee? So obviously he don't want to talk about this. Yes, please. Rena very probably thought I was trying to change the subject. I mean, it's literally what he did. He changed the subject. But for once, had answered her honestly. I mean, I wasn't good at the stock exchange. I really wasn't any good at it. Only 3 applications remained that had any probability of being people actually trying to help others in need. Then I found the 3, and all of them answered. But from whose 3 documents I took 2 and hurled them into the garbage bin. The flabbergasted face she made was a little funny, but it immediately turned into a scowl. Please tell me why you did that. She said that like I was some sort of villain. The response during the call were slow, weren't they? Call? Am I wrong? It seemed that their replies were one beat behind. That's true, but so what? They might have a bad connection. There are lots of problems like that on the lunar surface, aren't there? Static and delay are different. The call recipient is probably on Earth. Huh? No matter how much technology advances, it can surpass the speed of light. I'm certain that the delay I heard just from your side of conversation was because the call was being forwarded to Earth. Probably to some rocky Eastern European country or a lesser-known southern island. Anyway, their police can't go after them, and it's probably in a place where it wouldn't make sense to send our police. Also, the person living at the address they gave was an outsider who had no idea what all this was about. The specialized relay lines used by trading companies and importers who frequently needed to get into contact with Europe had been hacked countless times. As most of the perpetrators were just penniless immigrants trying to make phone calls to Europe, the financial damage were very limited, and as such the hacking went fairly unnoticed. There were ever specialized brokers who sold phone services that could forward calls to Europe. I knew about the foods because there had been a case study on the topics at the Legal Science Department. There's a question of whether this would count as fraudulent use of phone line, illegal use of electricity, property damage done to a relay equipment, alteration of digital data, or violation of communication laws. I couldn't tell how this case study could have any practical use. Rena was passing out, so I shrugged my shoulders. But this one didn't have any of that. Yeah, that's right. This one is surely legitimate. Then said that looking at the remaining document, they were apparently providing temporary lodging and employment support for migrants in the city slums, which was perfectly acceptable. Looking at the map, the address given the buildings matched, and they had no connection to any suspicious contractors or unrelated companies. An employee had answered the call immediately and had responded promptly. Normally, it would be okay. Ria was also looking at me, wondering if there still was a reason to doubt them. But something about it smelled fishy to me. There's no need to rush this case, right? Ria clamped up when I said that. Reducing the number of frauds by even a single case increased the odds of proper organization receiving financial aid, and first increased the probability of people in need being helped. I, at least, wanted to be a major champion of justice. A cloud of voices floated in from outside. I started silently at the document. Hearing that noise startled Rena, who was brooding, causing her to jump in her seat. She turned her chair to face the monitor directly. Right after that, a group of radically clad individuals who didn't look they were suited for desk work came in, a group that only collected their pay and welfare without doing any proper work. Returning to their desks, they turned on the same stock information program and began noisily chattering in vulgar tones about which looked good and which were profitable. It only quieted down when the overworked division chief, who oversaw 3-hour departments, came to patrol around. As I returned to my desk and began doing my boring work, Ryan never tried to speak to me when the rest of them were around. Those who always tucked off and had a cruel way of harassing the serious workers who dared to take on a small break. Quite a few hard-working employees had quit because of that. However, Rena, who looked the weakest of all, apparently had a reason why she couldn't give up. What was a given here on the moon? Neither I nor Rena spoke a single word, speaking inorganic data in the cell until everyone left at their regular time, 5 p.m. The sky was a crimson red when we returned our card keys to the security guard. We were the last to leave the building. The branch office was located in the fairly inexpensive business district of the 4th Outer District. It had a bunch of stores in its vicinity. Their prices were like the income of who's living around here, not all that high, but still not cheap either. About 2 blocks north, there was a higher class district. It seemed that Rena went from there from time to time. When I wondered how she'd been able to go there on a meager government office job, she went red in the face as she mumbled something about making some money in stocks. I didn't recall ever pressing the point any fewer than that. Okay, I guess she has another work. In this crimson sunset, people still working were mingling with others who were finally down for the day, producing a warm atmosphere despite the temperature slowly going down. I mean, okay, maybe she just have a boyfriend, Sophie. Who knows? Anyway, there are probably a lot of people who preferred this deeper red to that of the early morning. Are you really going to look? You have something else planned. I don't mind going alone. You're quite mean-spirited, Hal. They adjusted the dark brown messenger bag, hanging over her shoulder as she said that. I'll go sense for once. There's actually one left over. And also because I really don't see what could be wrong with this application. Couldn't stand why she was displeased. There were no problems in the paperwork, and they had perfectly answered on the phone as well. But this was probably no good. Well, you'll know after seeing it. That's true. Yeah, you'll understand once you see it. I had learned this from a certain someone 4 years ago. It must have been the real deal if I was able to make use of this advice even now. That was more comforting than it was aggravating. Had been conned and beaten by a real person. If he was a real pro, it just couldn't be helped that he'd ready to take out a novice kid, right? I took Ren along as I inwardly laughed at myself, heading towards the address written in the application. I was using a crutch, and Rena, with her lower than average walking speed, was faster than me. 4 years ago, I would try drying, and one-legged. I would have been driven by the need to go faster. An impassioned born of my desire to reach the untrodden land before anyone else. Oh yeah, we pretty much seen this in first episode, especially when he just was getting to Barton, and when he get first invitation without thinking about anything. Now, I thought I was behind Rena, who seemed like she could live by gnawing the most growing rocks on the lunar surface. I wasn't even thinking about trying to pass her. That was fine. I would only do what I could. That was how I felt. Oh, my train of thoughts was broken by the sound of Rena's voice in front of me. Raising my head up, I saw a small crowd of people, hustling and bustling in front of us. When Rena saw that, she began taking off towards it, looking slightly happy. That was probably Sophie doing a street performance to get some change. Mind if I go take a look? Go ahead. She asked if she could go and thought she had already joined the rest of the crowd. I guessed at them from a distance. It seemed that the performer was a violinist. After a short introduction, I began to hear the characteristic sound of the stringed instrument. People were easily pulled in if they heard the sound of high-class instrument in a place like this. Plus, he was also really good. The circle of people grew to become 2 rows deep, and then 3. By the time the performance was over, the crowd was enormous. Applause and whistles rang out as quite a few people started rifling around their pockets to take out their wallets. Apparently, some of the performers were students who paid their tuition and living expenses by doing this on the side. And they weren't the only ones. I'd heard that many immigrants played music from their homeland as a side job. Even if you didn't know the language nor culture, music had a universal reach. I thought that it seemed pretty tough. I never heard of punks born on the lunar surface making money like that. And if I used to think I was different, I had ended up becoming one of those lunar punks at some point. Sorry for the wait. Ian said after that she somehow managed to squeeze out the crowd before another song began. She was still holding onto her purse, so she had probably given them some change. That was a great performance. It must have either been a really good performance or that much of struggle to get out the crowd, because Rena's cheeks were unusually rosy. When she was inputting data for long periods of time, her blood circulation slowed, and her skin became the color of marble. As her coworker, it was somewhat reassuring to see her like she was right now. Is that so? Yeah, it was most definitely someone who has learned the violin not formally on Yorf. Adapted Rana had said that to emphasize how Yorf was superior to the lunar surface, but from time to time, her personal opinion showed in her choice of words. Being on the lunar surface couldn't be said to be easy by any standards, so she was probably just homesick. You're able to hear it as much as you like for free on the internet, aren't you? That's very true, but it just sounds better when it's in front of you. I don't mind playing a little bit for that. Paying a little bit for that. Is that how it is? That's how it is. I acknowledged our similar sentiment and then started talking. It says that they can play an instrument. An instrument. I myself used to play the piano long ago. Oh, sorry. I myself used to play the piano long ago, but well. Ian said that while making keyboard playing motions as she walked. As I watched her decidedly less than graceful movements, Ian seems to notice I was staring at shrugged, looking a bit embarrassed. But of course, I wasn't very good at it, and I got discouraged partly true, but I wasn't exactly sure how to respond, so I just nodded anyway. Well, you see, I thought of becoming pianist when I was younger. You know how you are when you're young. Oh, for Rena, wearing clothes the color of burnt grass, on a meager salary, in a poorly respected government office, working on the lowest level of data processing, and doing most of her workers' work. This must have been a grand dream. Yeah, that was my dream long ago. She walked and squinted at the sky as it began to change from crimson red to ultramarine. The young Rena could dream about anything, and she had virtually limitless possibilities. But now, Rena was like this. And what possibilities did she have in her future? After I walked a few steps behind Rena, she stopped and came to my side. What's your dream, Hal? Because of how dull and innocent Rena was, I thought she'd ask me that eventually. The lower service was a place where people sought success, following their desires. Sorry. Who was who sorry whose who had no dreams could only live here by staring with people who did. I answered as I hobbled along on my crutch. None. What? None. I don't have one. I didn't tell her what I had lost it. My dreams had been crushed to pieces on that day 4 years ago, along with the display shattered with my forehead when I find it. Hmm. Rena looked at me like I was some sort of strange creature, but then chuckled a little and let out a sigh. That's a relief. What do you mean? Just that. Because people on the lunar surface are always looking up. Those who don't look up are always thinking about being above the ones around them. But if you aren't going up, then it means you're stepping over someone else, doesn't it? Are you talking about the hours in the office? You really are quite mean-spirited, Hal. Lena, who still retained the naivety of a child despite her age, smiled wryly, tensing up a little. I don't think it's bad for people to compete with each other, but if everyone competing, then who will look after the people who fall down and hurt themselves? An optimistic way of thinking. All those countries down on Earth that focused on welfare had, for the vast majority of them, ruined their economy. It's so idealistic that it's laughable, though. Then smart without a care, the word as she said that like it was a joke. It was something you could laugh at, and if unlike me, you could move your face. But I am able to help people, and if only a little, by doing things like spotting of fraudulent applications. That's true. I said that tersely, then spoke again. Yeah, that's right. Well, without the help from someone like you, I wouldn't get much done. Seeing Ren smile bitterly like that, I thought about pulling up the corners of my mouth, but stopped. I didn't want her to mistake that for a sardonic smile. Hey, even if it's not much, I also want to help people, you know? Hey, yeah. Is that strange? No, I'm quite happy knowing that there's someone who thinks that way. It may just be flattering for my boss and supervisor. Hey, yeah, I might, I might not be, I might not be sharpest tool in the thread, but I do somewhat have an eye for people. You're a bit scary, but you're good a person, Hal. I remember hearing that someone else was supposed to be supervised their working students, but that this tiresome job had been pushed onto Rena. I feel like your personality would cause her grief. But if the rest of the world was based on a zero-sum game, people like Rena had to get to the short end of the stick for the hours to get ahead. If that was the case, was Rena being useful to someone? Thinking about it made me unable to withstand all the melancholy. As if to atone, I spoke again. Well, I'm not so sure whether I can or not, but I do want to be of help to someone. Hehe. I had loved it, but it truly was my wish. It didn't matter how trivial it was, I wanted to be useful to someone. Rena had said that it was that a champion's justice was all about. Rena and I finally arrived at our destination. Hmm. Okay, it's really familiar background. It should be so familiar. Are they in 6th district? Following a road that looked more like an alleyway, we reached a cheap-looking 3-story building. It looked like little more than a hollow cube carved out the rocks on the lunar surface, with the windows and a door added to it. It was how little of design there was. Square buildings were lined up around it, and reminded me of the old street where Lisa Church once was. Okay, so it's not the same place. Is this the right place? It looks exactly like on the map online. So this is the one. What is it? Nothing. I was just wondering if that was my win then. Rena stared at me teasingly before abruptly directing her attention toward the building. In the small road in front of the building, there were clothes lines with some laundry still left on them, as if forgotten. There were piles of random things next to that, giving out the impression that many people lived in that destitute district. According to the documentation, there were 3 salaried employees and 8 volunteers in charge. They were able to house a maximum 17 immigrants, so that seems about the right number of employees. My eyes scanned the various objects around the building. A worn-out soccer ball, a Ragely doll, and in a place that appeared to be a garbage dumping site was a pile of empty bottles of the most popular watered-down beer on the lunar surface. My suspicion was gradually turning into certainty. On paper it looked fine, but clearly there were flaws here. Well, shall we go talk to them? Rena had looked at the building and its surroundings, and reached the opposite conclusion. She apparently thought that her hunch was right. It didn't indeed look like people from the lower end of the financial spectrum lived here. The biggest sides of that were the playground equipment that could be easily mistaken for garbage, along with all the empty beer bottles. But there was one thing that couldn't hide. What is this? Oh, hey, need something? It was right when Rena went to knock on the door on the first floor. One of the 3 men turning the corner called out to us. Ah, Rena blurted that out in confusion. The guy who was dressed in a factory worker's clothes with his sleeves rolled up was definitely a physical laborer. He clearly looked at Rena, at me up and down before he spoke. You don't like real estate agents. The lunar service had a severe housing shortage, so real estate agents appeared practically anywhere people could live. The people living here had probably been chased out of their homes by real estate agents more than once, so they probably held a grudge against them. Seeing that even with how slow Rena was, she had realized the same thing. She almost threw her back, as if she had the hiccups, desperately trying to introduce herself. Just as I was about to resign myself to come to her rescue, with that, the door of the building suddenly opened vigorously. The children floating out paid no attention whatsoever to Rena and went straight to the man. You're back. Yeah, I'm home. Been doing good. The man lifted up their own children easily, and we found them on lower gravity. The man embraced the children with a lazy expression on their faces, putting the children up on their shoulders and holding them in their arms like small bundles. 2 women appeared in the doorway holding kids sucking from the bottles. Each went to one of the men and gave him a kiss in front of us. Off to the side, Rena looked very much like she was in the wrong place. Is this a welfare institution that provides immigrants with cheap accommodation and employment support? She wanted to ask them that question, but the words wouldn't come out. After the momentary bliss of the end of the workday, The man soon recalled that they have some mysterious guests. Hmm, interesting. This man actually has a sprite. If we're gonna meet him again. Hmm. Was there something you needed from us? The man who had been greeted by neither a woman nor a child asked us that. Had only casually looked up and waved a little girl spying out from the third floor window. Is this... How easy is it to live around here? I said that disregarding Rena. Was a bit farther away, so I spoke a bit louder. He looked back at me suspiciously, but I was seeing my crutch. He seemed to come to an understanding all by himself. It was a useful item. Yeah, it isn't bad. It's a pitch black at night, but there is nothing dangerous around. Why? Are you thinking about moving in around here? Yeah, the rent just keeps going up everywhere. Haha, that's true. We were chased out of another district and wound up here. We just didn't earn enough. But home is where you had your heart after all. That's especially true when you're not on your own, right? The man looked at us, when winked awkwardly at bewildered Rena. From his splendid mustache, large frame, and bluntness, I guessed he probably was an Italian immigrant. Clearing my throat, I spoke up again. I can't really laugh at that after seeing everyone here. Ha ha ha. With the sounds of the man louder, came a high-pitched child's voice screaming, Dinner is ready. Alright. Well, that's about it. I certainly recommend this area. My brother and a couple from Europe are renting this place, and it's 400 moose a head tops. Folks living in the nice downtown area wipe their asses with that kind of money. Yeah, really. It's just that living expenses are all I can afford still. That powerless smile was probably the same as the obligatory smile he showed off at the work site to keep himself from being fired. Well, if you feel like it, I can introduce you to the guy who runs this joint. We're all brothers in time of need. When the man said that to me, gave Renan our obvious wink and went inside. When the door closed, the area was once again just a cold black alleyway. The leeway, sweetest smelling but cheerfully loud of unending happiness, spilled out from the other side of the door. Rena stood dumbfounded, staring at the closed door. It's difficult to make up a complete lie. Rena was startled at what I said and turned to me. But a certain amount of the story is true, then it's easier to lie about the rest. What do you mean by? The 3 hours running the household here are probably the 3 salaries employees. That volunteers probably refers to the children. I think the cheap accommodation for immigrants means they figured they'd make good at some point and leave, and the employment support is so they can look for better jobs, which isn't a bad thing. But they don't believe the financial support they want for their activities is wrong, either. 400 moves ahead for housing would make it difficult to save money. I looked up at the 3-story building and shrugged a bit at its sheer size. Saying that they were accommodating 70 people here was a big mistake. Huh? I thought that they'd need at least that many employees and volunteers for this scale, but having 17 more people here in addition to them, no way. This 3-story building wasn't that big. If you put 3 families in there, it'd be a madhouse, probably without even a place to step. My parents gave rowdy workers from Earth a place to sleep, so I had come to know full well what was necessary to accommodate a given number of persons. No matter how many layers you try to apply on your fabricated story, a slip-up will always happen. This application is no exception. I took the document off my back as I spoke. We'll have to reject it. But Let's have a look at the building once again. You're rejecting it? She was probably aware that this wasn't how an older superior should have spoken. The financial aid application are meant to be for welfare-related activities. What if the money is going to help people in need? Then I realized my tone was much stricter than it needed to be. Also, my lack of facial expression was probably giving off a much harsher impression than I intended to. Even so, I didn't take back that I said. Those are rules. If it's for welfare assistance, then it's a different ticket window. This is fraud. I spoke like a honor student bound by rules and principles. Long ago, I would have exploited any loophole available. I have no qualms running on the people's coattails. But where had this path born from my kind mind led me? I had blindly believed my own flair and capacity to take action, and rushed down the path that the Reaper pointed out to me. But awaiting me there was a gaping, pitch-black hole. I still vividly remember that terror. That was why I had said to the Rena, so she could protect herself. But Rena was still muttering under her breath, with her head hung before looking over at me. But this is the last application, isn't it? That's true. If we reject this, then all of them will have been rejected, right? Then at least one? When I responded, Rena looked down. I understood that Rena wanted to say, wouldn't it be fine if the money was going to people who needed it, even if that was bending the rules? She might have been right, but I no longer wanted to think like that. I had paid a heavy price to learn that type of thinking led to. As you're my boss, I hand it over to you. Saying this, I approached Rena on my crutch and showed the application documents against her chest. I didn't all I could do. The rest is at your discretion now. Rena fidgeted around, taking the documents thrust out at her. I was probably just passing the buck, but it was all I could do. But just letting that application go through won't really help that family. When I said that, Ren looked at me like a little girl being teased to the point of tears. The fact that rules are being broken still remains. I spoke like I was criticizing Rena, but I was really criticizing myself. I should think hard about it. It's impossible to change the decision once it's been made. I looked away as I spoke. At very least, you will have to live with that fact. Huh? Then raised her head and looked at me. I did an about face without looking at Rena and began walking off. Let's head back. It really does get pitch black here after dark. It seemed like Rena wanted to say something, but instead she just followed after me, still holding the application against her chest. Going out of the maze like alleys, we arrived at a busy road. Rena called out to me as I was about to enter the area. How big, isn't it? When I looked back, her face was drooped down so I couldn't see it. But I understood what she meant by those words. That's true. Big. That was the unadulterated truth. Well, then see you tomorrow. Then I gave a tired and very smile, then disappeared into a streetcar. I never did hear what she would do with that document she stuffed into her bag. I wanted to head back to my room. I have a nightcap I couldn't quite handle, but I had the promise with Chris, except that now I felt a little different about not wanting to go. People were not that weak. Not were they alone. The existence of Chris, as well as Lisa's church, had helped me to remember that. Chris had managed to grab Connors from a very high place, and Lisa's stubbornness was still rooting itself deep in the lunar surface. I thought that maybe I should have invited Rena along. She would probably just return to that cramped apartment without anyone welcoming her back and now on that dry chicken sandwich she forgot to eat at lunch. But I had no way of contacting her now. This was yet another irrevocable decision. For a moment, my red hand began throbbing, but I somehow managed to get through it. Could see Rena again tomorrow. I walked alone under the veil of darkness soon, to the alley of the city, hunched over and drying my foot, as others made their merry way home. Okay. Mm, okay, let's stop here. It's maybe we can be still maybe still should read a little more, but I'm not sure how this point gonna be, how long it's gonna be, since there's obviously gonna be more conversations with other people. So yeah, I guess it's good enough point to stop. Anyway, today we really seen how much Haru actually changed. Hmm, yeah. Anyway, so so for today, next stream gonna be on Tuesday. But for now, goodbye. Have a nice of the day.